that relates to aid effectiveness. So very welcome to this session. I just would like to start by introducing the panel. My name is Gábor Veréci. I work at UNDP as a regional technical advisor on climate change adaptation for the Pacific region, and I'm based in the beautiful island of Samoa in the South Pacific. Maybe just pass on the microphone to our very provocative provocateur, and then we just go down the line and have everybody introduce him and herself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gábor, and good morning to everybody. My name is Salim Ul-Haq. I wear two hats. I'm a senior fellow in the climate change program at the International Institute for Environment and Development based in London, which I've been doing for the last 10 years. But I'm also in the process of relocating to Bangladesh to set up a new international center for climate change and development, which is going to be a joint venture between IIED, my institute in London, a university in Bangladesh called the Independent University Bangladesh, and the Bangladesh Center for Advanced Studies, and we'll be focusing particularly on training and capacity building on climate change and development through short courses and a master's degree program on climate change and development. And I will try and be as provocative as possible, being the designated provocateur.
Thank you so much. We're going to pass down the line, and please introduce yourself. And I also ask the colleagues that to pose a critical issue or question that they think the most burning in their mind and what they would like to address through their intervention, and they want to focus in this debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning also. My name is Tom Bilo. I also wear two hats. I work for the UNDP Asia Pacific Regional Center here in Bangkok as a governance and aid effectiveness advisor. And I also work as part of the Secretariat for a multi-donor facility called the Capacity Development for Development Effectiveness Facility, which focuses on taking forward aid effectiveness in the region. I have been asked to develop a question, which is a burning question in my mind, and that question is this. What can we learn from 60 years of good, bad, and really bad practice in ODA management that can inform the climate change finance debate?
I think that's a very simple question. I'm sure we will find some easy answers here. Please.
Good morning. I'm Tamara Levine from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. I'm an administrator of the Environment and Development Network of the Development Cooperation Directorate. The question that I've been asked to address today is our donors fulfilling their commitments? And I want to emphasize that it's not just commitments to climate change financing and to the Copenhagen Accords, but also commitments to deliver aid effectively. So commitments to the Paris Declaration and Accra Agenda for Action. And I'd like to highlight the connection between those climate financing commitments and the aid effectiveness commitments.
Thank you so much, and I understand that Tamara actually have some slides to show some figures to hold them accountable, so you're just shooting out in the air. So next one, please.
My name is Lena Wokek, and I work for CSR Asia, and specifically for the CSR Asia Center at AIT here in Bangkok. CSR Asia is an organization that provides research, training, advice, and thought leadership, and works with and for businesses on business solutions to global challenges. And of course, climate change and climate change adaptation is one of the key challenges that we face globally today. So I think the key question that I think is important to bring to this discussion is how can we engage business effectively to contribute to climate change adaptation, and in the context of this discussion, of course, especially financing adaptation. And really talking about this question, is business sufficiently engaged? And I'm very happy that Dr. Park also mentioned that in the opening plenary this morning. Is business sufficiently engaged? And if not, what do we need to do about that?
Thank you so much. So the private sector coming in, please.
Hi, I'm Brad Phillips. I'm representing USAID at this meeting. I'm relatively new to USAID, but I'm old to the region, over 3 decades, and 20 of those were with ADB. The topic that I've been designated to talk about is the relationship between ODA and climate financing. And the issue that I'd like to raise, or the question, is do we have the tools to be able to differentiate what assistance really falls into the development category and what falls into the adaptation category. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Another very easy question that I'm sure we'll find the answer in the next hour or so.
Good morning. I am Bob Dobius. I'm from the Asian Development Bank, the head of the Climate Change Coordination Unit. I've also lived in Asia for over 3 decades, but I am younger than Brad. The question that I will discuss a bit is looking forward. What are some of the considerations as we move forward into 2011 and 2012? And I will try to look at this very briefly from 3 levels, from the global, regional, and national levels.
Thank you so much. And last but not last.
Bonjour, my name is Olivier Gillard. I'm working for the French Development Agency, and I am replacing Mr. Taro Katsurai, which is presented in the presentation book of the conference. And it's part of our coordination and cooperation with other bilateral agencies that I am replacing him today. I am involved in rural development and agriculture for more than 20 years now, and I spent for AFD some time in Vietnam, in Cambodia, and now in Thailand. And the question that I would like to raise is the additionality concept relevant to enhance finance efficiency? And I think that addition of funds is somehow different from additionality due to climate change. Thank you.
Okay. That was already a question and an argument. And I think it's also setting a good practice on bilateral coordination. So as you can all see, we have a very distinguished panel here. I think we are looking for a very, very exciting session. So without further ado, just let's start it. I just would like to take the scene for one slide before our provocator takes on the stage. Okay, maybe just to provocate our provocateur even, but I just couldn't resist putting up this one slide, and I would like to credit for this my colleague Tuoli Kurbanov, who is the Deputy Resident Representative at UNDP and the Fiji Country Office, because just last week we had a whole week session with the World Bank, organized by World Bank and ADB, and actually we had a panel session on climate change finance, and this is the opening slide of his presentation. The title wasn't this, but this slide has been termed as such, the spaghetti ball of climate finance, and actually it's quite eye-catching. I just thought that I present it to you as a kind of grand experience of really how does it look like from a country, from a recipient perspective, because we are going to talk in this session about a lot of flows, methods, concepts. So I just really wanted to put a bit of a grand reality, which is very striking, especially in the Pacific, with those small island developing states so vulnerable and so upfront in the climate change adaptation debate. So just let's imagine, put in the center a country, actually it looks like an island, and who is about to receive or would like to receive climate finance to address some urgent adaptation needs. So where is this money coming from and how? We have the multilateral institutional development banks. That's one big and quite complex package. We have the whole UN system with all its complexity, not going to detail. We have quite an array of bilaterals which coordinate to different extent, and these are the most typical one, at least in the Pacific, with a very strong ground presence, and we have some new players. Other countries are also coming in this scene. In the Pacific, it's a very specific inbreed, a set of regional organizations, so-called Council of Regional Organizations in the Pacific, technical and political organizations. So this is like the overall scenery, and this all comes to the country in different forms, shapes, amounts, etc. But to make it a bit more complex, Also, the interface at the country is rather comprehensive, complex, because there is a set of ministries, line ministries, cabinet development committees, finance ministries that try to engage in climate change. And of course, they also need to coordinate between each other. So what I would like to underline that it's a very, very complex situation. And really, I think it's good to also look at the recipient side and the country level capacity. We talk about absorptive capacity, delivery of these funds, and actually just also not to lose sight. At the end, we try to make a difference in livelihoods, get all the way down to the community level through the policy changes, through the institutional capacity building. So I would like to stop here and hand it over to my colleague Salim.
Thank you very much, Gabor. That's it. That's the one. Can you put it on? What I'm going to do is, as provocateur, raise some issues with regard specifically to climate finance and specifically to adaptation finance in particular, because that really is the hot topic for this year leading up to Cancun, and hopefully we want to get some resolution of that by December in Cancun. So let me start by giving you a little bit of an overview of where we stand after Copenhagen. As many of you will recall, we had the Copenhagen Accord, which talked about money. It talked about two sets of funds with two different timelines. The short-term timeline is what is now being referred to as the Fast Start Finance, or FSF for short. And that's an amount of $30 billion over 3 years, starting in 2010, ending in 2012. What happens after 2012 is not quite clear, but that's 3 years. And then there's a longer-term finance which starts in 2020 at $100 billion a year. And with respect to the Fast Start Finance, the language in the Copenhagen Accord about how that's going to be split talks about a balance between adaptation and mitigation. It doesn't explain what a balance means, whether that's 50-50 or some other combination. So that's where the Copenhagen Accord came forward last December. Now, since then, a number of questions have arisen which need to be resolved, in my view, by Cancun if we are going to go forward with the funding for adaptation in particular, but climate change more generally. First of all, the question is with regard to the $30 billion of Fast Start Finance, how much of this is actually going to be for adaptation? As I said, the wording in the Copenhagen Accord says balance, but we're not quite sure how much is going to be, and perhaps some of our panelists might be able to respond to that. The other one is which contributing countries, Annex 1 country, will give how much. As I will show in the next slide, some countries have already come forward with pledges based on their own calculation of what they think is their share of this 30 billion, and they've put forward some figures. The other question that still remains open is which funding channels will they be given through? The Copenhagen Accord speaks of using existing funding channels, by which, as I will show later, many of the developed countries mean existing channels like the UNDP or the World Bank or the Asian Development Bank. But when it comes to adaptation finance, there are existing funds under the Framework Convention as well, like the Least Developed Country Fund and the Adaptation Fund. So it's not clear which channels are going to be used. And then an associated question with that is which developing countries will receive these funds. The developed countries, if they choose to give it through bilaterals, again, choose the countries they give it to. And they also, by the same token, choose countries that they don't give it to. If they use the UNFCCC channels, then all developing countries become eligible. So there's a question of who gets the funds that needs to be addressed. And then a vexing question which relates to the question that has already been alluded to: what does new and additional mean? This phrase is used in the UNFCCC, it's reused again, repeated in the Copenhagen Accord, but new from when, additional to what, is still not an agreed formula. So my final point is just a little bit of an update of where we stand right now. As I said, a number of Annex 1 countries have put forward pledges. There have been various attempts to add them all up, which I believe does reach 30 billion. I've seen an estimate that says it reaches 31 billion. Perhaps that's true, I'm not quite sure. There's no single common platform where you can get this information.